Hi, this is Gil Robles again. In another few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and do another demonstration in Rebelle, uh, another watercolor of a Union soldier's portrait. But before I go ahead and do that, what I want to do is go over how I use the watercolor tool in Rebelle. I'm not an expert at this. I'm still learning about this program. But what I do know is that I do a lot of watercolors. So I know how I want my watercolors to look and how I want my tool to behave while I'm using it. So, and when I go ahead and paint, when I do the demonstration, that is, what happens is that the video is sped up. So maybe people don't have enough time to see what I'm clicking and so forth as I'm going along. I'm going to show what it is I do before I go ahead and start the video. Over here you have the watercolor tool right there. It's the very first in the set of tools that they have here. And below it you have the presets, the size, the pressure, the loading, and the water. The loading means the color, obviously, and the water is how much water is on the tool. Um, and below that you have all these other features. I mean, below the icons of the different tools, you have all these other features. The three most important I'm going to go over right now is here you have the water, and what it is you can change the size and the amount of water, but you're just putting water digitally on the piece of paper so that more water will flow down. I'll demonstrate that in a little while. It's also right underneath the water you have the tilt. Now you can tilt the way the water flows. The water can flow downward or sideways or up, and I will also demonstrate that as we go along. And the other thing is you blow. When you put the color down, you're able to blow on it as long as it's a color you just put down. So it will push the paint around. Okay, so let me throw on some color. Also, over here where you have your layers, you have some icons immediately below the layer. I'm going to focus on two. One is you see these droplets right here, these three droplets. That's wet. That wets your paper. Make sure your paper's wet. And then right here, you see those wavy lines like vapors going up, I guess. That's dry. And then you have your layers. You can change your opacity. I'm not going to get into the blending modes. And then you have your paper where you can change the paper. When you open a new, I don't want to save anything, so no. Here are your presets. Now you can change these, of course. There's you have in pixels right here, and then you have 400 dpi dots per inch, and right below you have the physical size of the page in centimeters and in inches. So right now with the pixels that I've selected, there's about 5 by 7¼ inches. You can change this by changing the width and the height of the pixels right here. I'm going to leave it alone. It's just for the purpose of demonstration. This is fine. You can also change the paper color, and the paper texture. Right now it's on white, which is fine. I'm going to change the texture right there, and that's it. And so there you have it. Um, Let me go ahead and blow this up a bit. So I'm going to go right ahead and put some color with the watercolor brush. And I'm using Cintiq, or any tablet will do this with the pressure sensitivity. If you just do that, it's just going to be a little worse. If you press on your pen, you're going to load more color on the page. and you see it's dripping. Now it just kind of drifts to every way right here. But if we tilt it, then it's going to go the way we tilt it. Right now it's tilting down. I can tilt it to the side. I can tilt it to the left side, or I can tilt it up. Basically, I can control the angle where the paint flows. I like to leave it on down because that's the way I paint. And if you want to stop the paint from dripping further, you can press the icon right here in layers where to dry the paper, and the dripping will stop. Okay, so we'll get back to the watercolor brush, throw some more water on there, some more paint, and it will start to drip right away. I will stop it. This is one of the things I do. I try to be quick in controlling the way the paint flows. So, if I don't want it to go too far down, or I can wait for it till it drops to the place I want it to, and then I press for the paper to dry. Another thing you can do is if you want to be more precise, you can take off the water and you can paint with as much or as little water as you want. And what happens is you have more of a dry brush now. You see, there you go. Load. Change the size. And then if you throw a little bit of water on there, you have a little bit of the paint spreading on the page, and you notice the texture of the paper. Okay, so that's one of the things. You control the tilt, you control the amount of water, you go from a wet to a dry brush, and then there's another technique that watercolorists use in using real watercolors, and that is they lift the paint from the page, and they, depending on the color, some colors stain the paper more, they can lift to the white of the page or almost white of the page. Now you can do that here in a number of ways. If you just want to lighten the color or wash some color water over it, you can just put some water, and that's just using water alone, Then you can control it with drying the paper and so forth. And however, if you want to lighten up an area, you can either use your eraser, or you can go into the color over here and select a very light color where it's almost white, or white if you want, and use a dry brush, and you can go back into it. Now this is good also for finer details you can pick out, and it doesn't have to be white, it can be a color, and you can go over it like that, or say you want to keep some of the color underneath, you can go add a layer and change the opacity of the layer. Select the color, let's do green, and go over it. There you go. Oh, I don't have too much water on this brush. Let me go ahead and, there you go. So, those are the things that I basically use as I go ahead and paint this demonstration. So when I'm clicking on it, I'm either uh, putting color on the paper and coming back and drying the paper and then reapplying some color in some areas and so forth. Um, and also I I lift that, or I go over it with some drier color or some different color. Um, I use either more water or less water, make a wet brush or a dry brush. And pretty much the same way I would do when I do a watercolor. It mimics watercolor very well. So on to the demonstration. Okay, so right away I'm using the pencil tool, obviously. One of the things I'll say about Rebelle, I love the paint tools. I'm not so crazy about the pencil tool. It doesn't mimic a pencil as well as something like Sketchbook Pro. You know, it's okay, it's adequate. I'm using the program mostly to paint, so I'm not complaining. I can still use it. But overall, I just sketching in, just wanted to get the bare bones of what I'm going to be painting. And like I said, I'm using the tilt you see so that the watercolor will tilt downwards and controlling the drips by going ahead to the icon underneath the layers, that wavy icon that dries the paper, and just from the start, just giving it overall impression of what I want to paint. Right now, I'm not worried about details. That'll come later. I'm not using the dry brush. That'll come later. The dry brush is really good for details and picking out areas. Right now, I'm just trying to cover up the whole area that I want to paint, and like I said, just get a general impression. So I'm not worried about the details, just the light and dark and the general idea of the color. So, and of course, like I said, it's about controlling uh, the spread of the watercolor. One of the things that's great about watercolor is that when you work in actual watercolors, because of the water, the paint is always moving. So you always have that ability to move the paint around. Once it dries, that's it. You can't move the paint anymore unless you're lifting it out. And pretty much Rebelle does the same thing. You know, the paint is moving. I can tilt it even as the paint is dripping. I can change the tilt. I didn't do that here. I just kind of let everything drip down because I like trying to mimic how I work as well, and as much as possible. I appreciate being able to undo things, but I don't rely on that. I don't rely on the undo button too much. I do use it though, but I really want to get the feeling as if I'm working with these tools as I did when I work with the actual thing. So I usually have a board on an easel or my paper on an easel taped to a board, and that easel is upright so the paint will drip downwards. Initially, this character had glasses. I got rid of the glasses just to focus in on his eyes, really. That's a lot of fun the way this program does that with the way the the color flows down. So anyway, I'm not an expert in any way at this software. Um, I like using it. I'm learning it as I go along. What I can share is what I shared in the beginning of this video as far as how I use these tools. The other things that come into play is obviously the drawing. The software is not going to give you that. That's something that you're going to have to develop yourself. The only thing that I can encourage is keep a sketchbook. Always draw daily. Don't let a day go by where you don't put something into the sketchbook, draw, and don't. If you want to get better, don't let a day go by where you don't draw at all. You know, that's mostly what's going to make your picture is your ability to draw, your ability to paint, and not what the software can do. What this software does, which is terrific, is mimic the watercolor, mimic the acrylic brushes are good. I haven't tried everything on the software yet. I'm still messing with it. I'm messing with a whole bunch of other software like still Sketchbook Pro, Corel Painter Essentials. What else do I have there? PaintStorm Studio. Uh, you know, a bunch of other stuff a bunch of other software that I've collected. Um, because it's fun too. It's fun to work in as many different mediums as possible, and that's how I view digital. It's just another medium. It's not a robot that automatically paints stuff for you. So, anyway, if you notice, like what I usually do is I don't stay in one particular area for long because I'm trying to build up everything all at once. Everything has a relationship to something else. The shape of the hat has to conform to the shape of the head. Well, you have to know that the head is inside. The rest of the head is inside that hat, and you know. It's funny, but at different points in doing this painting, I felt like I was pretty much finished with it. Like I didn't know when to stop, but when I kept looking at it, there was something else that I needed to change, something that I needed to go over, and one of the attitudes that I had when I started uh, experimenting with all the software is not be afraid to push things. Like I wasn't satisfied by the way the ear looked, so I had to go back and change that. I had already saved and closed out the software by that time, but as I kept looking at it, I felt I had to go back and really when you're working on something, especially one of the things digital does give you a chance to is you can always go back and change stuff. You can do it a lot easier than it is to do on paper because you can always put up another layer to make corrections, or like I did, I just used the eraser and erased that area and worked over it. Pretty much what I would do in watercolors is I would go over an area that needs a change, and I work on very heavy paper, so I'm able to scrub it out. I use a toothbrush, not the one I brush my teeth with, but just a regular toothbrush that a brand new one that I use specifically for painting. And so what I do is I just scrub out that area and um, and make it as close to the white of the paper as I can without without ruining the paper. Because I use a thick paper, that's possible. Now over here with the digital, I can just erase that area and paint over it, or else I can put another layer over it and paint on that layer on top of it and make the changes, then merge it later. So right now I'm using the dry brush over the painting that I did, and you can either do it directly on that layer, or place another layer and pick out things with the dry brush. With the dry brush, you're just applying a color, whether it's lighter or darker. If it's lighter, it'll show up against the dark. If it's darker, it'll show up against the light. So that's how it made it easy for me to pick out some of these whiskers in the beard. Also, I'm able to make changes in the hat and the face. I'm using the dry brush now. I'm not, except for going over that beard right now, I'm not using any wet paint. I'm using less water in the tool and more of the color, so it comes out as a dry brush, and I'm able to work in more of the little details, same as you would do in using watercolors. Is you have a wet method and you have the dry brush method, and you combine both. So coming close to the end of this demonstration, it's been a lot of fun using Rebelle. It is a great mimic as far as the watercolor brush. I did mess with the acrylic brush. I haven't done anything really big with it yet. I'm really enjoying this. Now this is the final painting, and you see when I blow it up, you get the texture of the paper there, which is really neat. And so when you go to print, that'll also come up as well. You can see the little details with the dry brush. I'm not super crisp on the details, but that's all right. It actually works for this demonstration, and I'm not trying to make a photograph. I'm trying to make a painting. That's it. That's the final painting. Thank you for watching this video. Please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel. There will be much more videos to come where I'll be exploring Rebelle, Sketchbook Pro, whatever software I happen to be using at the time, I will definitely share here on this channel. Also, on the right, you can support this channel by clicking the support button. Any donation would be greatly appreciated. As well, you can also visit me on my blog at artinthebusyworld.blogspot.com. Thank you.